Hi, hello, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bitcoin Brief with your host, Tone Vays. This is our first and only show for the week, and we missed a lot of awesome stories. I am joined, as always, by Jimmy Song. We will try to get Giacomo back in, maybe Novak. Unfortunately, Christine Lee will no longer be hosting the show. I will do my best to find another lovely host, trying to get Leah back. Maybe we'll succeed. And we'll see going forward. Jimmy, how are you today, man?
I'm doing great. I don't know. The world just keeps getting weirder every day. I don't really know how we got here. Almost, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's more and more people are getting more and more depressed. It's kind of sad. And to be honest, like after I do these podcasts in the morning, I really don't want to do any work. Like I'm not motivated at all to do any work. So there's really nothing good to watch these days either. So it's not being very productive at all. I hope you are.
Oh, I'm trying. I'm definitely working on a book and doing a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, at least the UFC fight tomorrow sounds kind of interesting. So I think people will be watching Habib Nurmagomedov. Blah, blah, blah. I can't pronounce it. Versus Justin Gaethje.
And yeah, I'm more of a boxing fan. Never really got into UFC. Also, speaking of UFC, the debates last night. Did you get to watch any of that?
I did a little bit. I gotta say, it was just so boring. I was expecting kind of like fireworks, like the first one, which was great. I thought it had a lot of entertainment value. This time it's just sort of like, yeah, I'm gonna be polite now. It's just, come on.
I thought the first one was more of a clown show. In fact, one of them called the other one a clown. I thought it was Trump calling Biden a clown, but then someone told me that it was better. I was drinking while I was watching the last debate. This debate I actually paid attention to. It was more it was more on point. And I thought Trump, I mean, I have a biased opinion, but I thought Trump embarrassed Biden. I was gonna place some bets on Trump winning, but after this debate, I think the odds are gonna sway, way towards Trump, and those bets may not be as profitable. But then again,
you're gonna have a platform to be able to do it very soon, and you'll be able to do it using discrete log contracts. I don't know if you know about those, but it's on Bitcoin. So you enter Bitcoin on one side. Your opponent enters Bitcoin on the other side, and there's a discrete log contract that resolves based on an oracle.
But here's the thing: you can actually place these bets fully legally with USD right now on anything in the election, and this is perfectly legitimate and legal even for U.S. citizens. I'm trying to find. I have a website somewhere.
Well, the thing about those is they all take a vig, right? They take a cut of.
I'm not sure. I think this is like a university effort. I'm not sure if they do or not. Anyway, we need to move on with the show. I'll send it to you later.
Okay.
But there are fully legitimate ways of betting on the election. I guess it doesn't count as
if there aren't enough degenerate gamblers in the world.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of these gray zones where betting on election isn't technically gambling. There's also no restriction on gambling on chess games because it's considered like a full game of skill. So yeah, it's like one of these gray zones.
All right.
Anyway, let's speaking of clown shows that have been mentioned earlier, that's exactly where we're going to start today. We're going right into the whole Filecoin drama. The one thing I forgot to do this morning is to actually look up exactly how Filecoin functions, but I can take a wild guess as is just another shitcoin that pays you in their own shitcoin with their magical technology of you storing other people's data, which is probably one of the dumbest thing a person can do is store another person's data without knowing exactly what it is, because that could potentially lead to some serious legal liability. Is my general idea of Filecoin correct?
Yes, your general idea of Filecoin is correct. Yeah.
And in order to launch Filecoin, they had to create an ICO, probably on top of Ethereum, and it probably still is on top of Ethereum as an ERC20. That's my wild guess, which means they probably broke all kinds of SEC laws on securities by doing that. And having said all that, while some people in the early days praised Filecoin this way, from Eric Voorhees. Yes, it's got a boring name, but this is easily one of the most professionally built, carefully executed, and valuable projects that has emerged from the ICO era. That was Eric Voorhees' view. This is a nice long thread on Filecoin as to what the hell was going on recently, and even more recently, they launched something. Their miners were revolting. This is a combination of a little too technical for my interest, and it's a shitcoin, so that already kills a lot of my interest. So we'll let Jimmy fill in some of these gaps. What the hell is going on over there?
Well, so Filecoin kind of started about 3 or 4 years ago, and it got some serious traction among VCs and so on. I know there were a ton of VCs, for example, that went in on Filecoin. They raised $200 million in their ICO. A lot of that was just VC money. What happened was they created this like really kind of confusing system. Essentially, in order to be a quote unquote miner on Filecoin, you had to store other people's data. But proving that you actually stored the data requires like all sorts of processing power. And it turns out, as you can see from this thread, that it's actually very, very expensive to run Filecoin nodes, because you're constantly having to process this data and prove that you actually have it. Otherwise, it would it would take a lot of, you can just sort of like fake that you have that data and so on. And like economically, it just doesn't make any sense. That is one of the problems that happened with Filecoin. The other one was even more interesting. I don't know if you have the other tweet thread that I sent you earlier, but there,
another one?
Yeah, there was another tweet thread about how Filecoin screwed up with their testnet coins. So they had testnet.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I heard about that.
And what happened was, they weren't very good about their node software recognizing that these were testnet coins. So all these testnet coins got sent over to these exchanges and got sold. So it was supposed to be kind of like Zcash, where you would have this very tiny supply at the beginning, and as these miners created more coins, that it would expand. Instead, all these testnet coins were essentially became a part of the initial drop. And apparently the people behind Filecoin sent a ton of their coins to these exchanges, and it crashed the price like seriously. Like at its peak, it was around $200, and this hasn't been around that long. It only started trading in the last 2 weeks, like a week. So it was around $200. Today, right now, I think it's about $22. So it dropped like 90% in like 8 days, which is
when your own developers are masking testnet coins as real coins to make money on. That's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, not just that. Like they just flat out screwed up, and they said, okay, well, we'll just sort of expand the supply, and then like the miners sort of like colluded together. It sounds like, and they managed to extract more concessions, because like the thing about Filecoin was nearly everybody that had any sort of Filecoin stake or invested in the ICO or something, they had like this really long lockup periods of like a year up to even like 10 years, something like that. So you could only sell a very small portion at any one time. Now that they're trying to like change that, obviously because of a 90% drop in like a week or something like that is an insane number. So it's just like a complete mess. And I love what the tweet from Eric Voorhees. He was trying to pump it because, of course, his exchange was going to be trading in, and he expected more.
Yeah. There's no date on this, unfortunately. I hate things without date.
I think if you look at his Twitter, I believe it was like the day before or 2 days before Filecoin launched.
Right. So this is like
literally like a week and a half ago. But he was trying to pump it, and he's he's kind of gone off the rails. He's
Wait, I'm
pumping
sorry, you
pretty
said
much
before
anything.
Jimmy, hold on, back up here.
Mhm.
Filecoin launched a long time ago, no, or just launched?
Well, no, they did their ICO a long time ago, but
Oh,
they
but the
actually
network.
launched like a week and a half ago. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So this is why they're in the freaking news. So, oh god, like these shit coins, man. Like it's anyway. I do want to move on to more useful stories, kinda. Though the next story is also going to be talking about shit coins. So, but here's the thing. Their project, as I started off explaining, they're paying you in their own invented money, and they're creating something that is probably useless.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the amount of computation that you have to do as a quote unquote node versus how much you actually make for doing all of that computation just does not make any sense. It's just it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And you know there are service level agreements and guarantees that you get from Amazon that are way cheaper. So you know, I mean, there are lots of other cloud storage services. Even just buying a hard drive and you know like setting up like a data center somewhere else is probably cheaper at some point than doing some of this ridiculousness. And it's really just like a small cabal of Chinese manufacturers or Chinese miners that are doing all this anyway. And they seem pretty disappointed at the lack of money that they're able to make despite all of the capital that they've sunk into it. So yeah, it's a complete disaster as far as I can tell, and there's a lot of people with egg on their faces right now because this was not a small ICO. There were a lot of people that put a lot of money into it. You know, it was hyped to death. There were, you know, I mean, like Eric was so confident of its success that he put out this tweet, which is coming back to bite him and so on.
Yeah, and overall, and it's hard to fully debate these things because the product itself, like assuming the product was legitimately created, the product itself is questionable. Then you have it's paying you in their own created money, which is economically stupid. Clearly, it's proving itself that the developers behind it are not very capable. And where does it end? I mean, this project will be completely centralized by one or two miners. The collusion, the faking of data that you talked about, like what is stopping two miners or one miner to pretend like they're two different miners, one storing the other one's data?
I'm not sure, but like the way it works is that there's a pretty large computational cost to anything that you are storing. And like you're limited in how much you're allowed to store as a miner or something like that. I mean, they worked out the incentive so that it's extremely expensive and honestly kind of wasteful for each miner to do.
Well, it goes back to the a saying that I'm sure someone other than a friend of mine in my undergrad said, dazzle them with brilliance or baffle them with bullshit. And we're seeing the latter from a lot of these.
It's hard for a lot of normal people to tell the difference between those two things, unfortunately.
All right, I don't even care about this 25% block reward. Let's move on. Let's move on to the CFTC. And before we get to anything specifically Bitcoin related, and this is only a 1 minute clip. I feel like I have to play it. And it's incredible. Like, I don't think I've ever disagreed with a person's every single word in context. And I'm sure you've heard this before, Jimmy, but I'm going to play it for the audience. And let's go.
Let me just basically say how impressed I am with Ethereum, full stop, period. And then when I think about this as a regulator, I think of it almost analogized to email versus the internet. If Bitcoin is email, a one-trick pony, so to speak, but obviously revolutionary, Ethereum goes far beyond that. It's more like the internet, DeFi. Really, number one, it's obviously revolutionary, and I think at the end of the day, could lead to a massive disintermediation of the financial system and the traditional players, and ultimately potentially even reduce systemic risk in some ways, because we don't have the finance system concentrated in these large globally systemic important institutions. This is obviously, decades down the line, but it also raises a couple of other things. If a large portion of our global financial system winds up on Ethereum, then we have real concerns about what if Ethereum went down, right? So there is a financial.
I like the if part, not when.
For the system itself, the entire platform, I want the U.S. to lead in digital assets. And some might say, well, you just brought a case. Is that leadership? And the answer is yes, because what we want, our desire, is to create an environment where innovators, where digital asset exchanges can.
All right, I'll leave it there. It goes on for another minute because, obviously they are bringing charges on, companies that didn't scam anyone, but were allegedly in violation of US laws. But just his views and his understanding of Ethereum, and this is what's scary to me. I'll let you speak, but what's scary to me is both the SEC and the CFTC don't understand the technology at all, but they think they do. And because they think they understand the technology, they are basically acting completely irrationally and the opposite of what they should be doing. So his understanding that Bitcoin is email and Ethereum is like the internet is as ass backwards as it gets. And this is what's scary about the future if things are going to start getting built on Ethereum critical systems. Though in a way, it's better for these, for SEC, CFTC, it's better for all governments to build on top of Ethereum because Ethereum is totally centralized. And the government can just take over the Ethereum network very, very easily because it's not Bitcoin. So in a way, it makes more sense for them to be on top of Ethereum because they can control it.
Yeah, this guy is, a typical government bureaucrat. It's no news to anybody when a government bureaucrat thinks they know more than they do, it wields more power than they do, than they should, and does things without thinking about the secondary and tertiary consequences or second order, third order effects that come out of their idiotic decisions that they often make without really understanding anything. So this is not at all a surprise to me. It's pretty clear to me that he's been, brainwashed by the Ethereum crowd and into thinking things and saying things that he doesn't understand at all. Probably there's what, we know that Ethereum, for example, has been lobbying very heavily with regulators trying to get on their good side, as they probably should, because they'd be in a lot of trouble if the laws were enforced in the way they were written. They'd all be securities and they'd all go down the drain. But so they're obviously lobbying people like this guy, trying to get him to see things from their perspective rather than the actual truth. So it's no surprise to me that some government bean counter doesn't know what the heck he's talking about.
All right, so we'll move on from that one, and this is potentially even dumber. At first, when I saw the story, I thought it was all going to be about a Bitcoin ETF, which I do want to discuss with you a little bit now that the regulators are trying to go after the unregulated exchanges. I think, and a lot of people have speculated, the main reason for that is so that they are more comfortable with a Bitcoin ETF. But this specific article goes in a slightly different direction. So here's the SEC chairman, Clayton. If you're talking about the tokenization of ETFs, Mr. Clayton said, we should drive that, and we're willing to drive that. So-called tokenization allows a designated cryptocurrency asset similar to Bitcoin to represent a single security, such as a stock or a basket of securities like a fund or an ETF. A handful of firms have begun exploring the idea. Last year, where was I? Oh, here it is. Last year, Franklin Templeton filed paperwork with the SEC to launch a government money market fund whose shares would be tokenized on the Stellar blockchain network. But investors could also invest in traditional fund shares. So now we're not just talking about a Bitcoin ETF. We're talking about tokenization on top of these scam platforms like Stellar. Oh my God.
Yeah. And this is, I'm not sure what the heck they're thinking there, but if you have an ETF or almost any kind of security on one of these chains, you're going to be fully regulated, right? Like you need to know your customer, you need to know who it is, you need to register. If it's like some, you might need to prove that you're an accredited investor and so on. It gets kind of crazy. So I don't know what they're thinking. I guess it's just another centralized platform that they're gonna use instead of, say, NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange or something like that. Or maybe that's what they're thinking. But it seems like the most inefficient way to do it, because these technologies are not meant for speed or even integrity to a large degree. It's mostly just scams that they made. But yeah, I mean, if Stellar's bribed enough people to get them to consider something like this, then I guess that's what they're going to do.
Like, do these people not realize that the reason why Ethereum is able to convince you and Stellar and Ripple is because they're printing their own money and they're using that money to bribe all of these regulators as to for their cause that they are legitimate projects?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe they no longer have a monopoly on that, because the U.S. government has been doing things for a long time. But I imagine they kind of understand the game. But yeah.
All right. So now that, I mean, this is just insane, because like you said, it is the most inefficient way to do things. Why do you want all the prior regulation of a fund or an ETF, they're still going to hold, but now you're adding this blockchain that was basically invented because Jeb McCaleb was upset that they weren't giving him all of the Ripple. So he basically went and created his own money again to create Stellar. And now you're adding this another more friction with some shitcoin to build your ETF on top of, which is insane. But speaking of a Bitcoin ETF, obviously, now that we're back in a bull market, there's going to be lots of talk about a potential Bitcoin ETF. And our next piece of news is the big news with PayPal. Now that PayPal will allow people to just buy into Bitcoin, makes it a hell of a lot easier. And the financial public will demand the Bitcoin ETF. So that's coming.
Your screen hasn't moved. It's still on the Financial Times story.
Oh yeah, no, we're still on that. I haven't flipped the PayPal news because we're still sticking with the ETF news. So what are your thoughts on the Bitcoin ETF? What do you think it will do?
Well, it's always hard to sort of predict what regulators will do, and they've sort of denied a Bitcoin ETF for I don't know since the Winklevi tried to get one out like 4 years ago or 5 years ago. So I don't know. I'm not that optimistic about it happening. I think maybe this cycle they'll start one that will actually come to completion, but I don't expect that to happen that soon. Maybe like 2 or 3 years after the bull market. So maybe like 2025-ish or something like that.
Hey, were people able to hear that video that I played? People are saying no sound. That was weird. You were able to hear it, right?
I definitely heard it, so I'm guessing they did too.
I think people should have heard it. Okay. Yeah, so I'm always on, look, if there is a Bitcoin ETF, unless the Bitcoin ETF arrives at the most inconvenient time, like what happened with the CME futures arriving literally the day of the high, like December of 2017, when the price had gone up 20x in the prior 15 months. So unless that Bitcoin ETF comes in when Bitcoin is like flying up to 50, 100,000, there's a high probability that the Bitcoin ETF will drive the Bitcoin price higher at that point. But I'm not sure that long-term a Bitcoin ETF is good, because what a Bitcoin ETF will do is it will suck in more Bitcoin under the control of governments, just like the PayPal will and Coinbase is doing and a lot of other entities. So if you're not going to hold your own Bitcoin, somebody's holding it for you. And my fear down the line, my fear for, let's say, 10 years down the line, is that 20 to 30 to even 40 or more % of all Bitcoin is potentially under full confiscation with a single phone call by the US government. You just get PayPal and the Bitcoin ETF people, Winklevi twins, and Coinbase, or if they're still around, just get everybody on the phone, and you're like, yeah, we're gonna do a 1933 style gold confiscation, and we're just gonna take all that Bitcoin and we're gonna back our fiat money with it. So you have 24 hours to send us all the Bitcoin, or you guys are in a lot of trouble. So I kind of have that fear, but in order for that fear to be like really actually come into existence, like a single government needs to be overseeing at least 30% of all the Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's going to be strange. Yeah, the other aspect of it that I think is a little underrated is Barry Silbert makes a ton of money off of GBTC, and it's in his interest to make sure that an ETF doesn't happen. So who knows what he's doing?
Yeah, maybe, but it's inevitable. It is coming. All right, our final news of the show is, of course, PayPal. So I read this PayPal announcement, and it's interesting. So where do we begin here? Let's do this. Mainstream adoption of cryptocurrencies has traditionally been hindered by their limited utility as an instrument of exchange due to volatility, cost, and transaction speed. I almost laughed when I read this sentence, because first of all, you're not getting into Bitcoin development. So there's absolutely nothing that you're going to do that's going to actually help in Bitcoin's utility to exchange. Second, your announcement isn't even providing Bitcoin exchange. You're allowing people to just buy it and hold it with you. So like reading this sentence, you can't help but laugh, because none of it is what you're doing. But if you keep reading, it's actually interesting. However, the promise of advanced technological platforms offers the possibility of mainstreaming digital currencies, according to a survey. Actually, no, I'm going to skip that part. Let's go to here. The shift to digital forms of currencies is inevitable, bringing with it clear advantages in terms of financial inclusion and access, efficiency, speed, and resilience of payment systems, and the ability of governments to distribute funds to citizens quickly. Is this really a freaking bottleneck? Is this what the problem is? Is the problem in the world governments not able to hand out money to citizens quickly enough?
Believe it or not, it kind of is, because there are so many people that don't have checking accounts. This was one of the reasons why there was a provision in one of the bills in Congress to give everybody sort of like an account with the Fed, with a central bank digital currency. That is a part of it, but it's coming definitely from that central bank digital currency crowd, and not from the Bitcoin crowd, obviously.
Well, yeah, but however, the government shouldn't be handing out money to citizens anyway. We should have a capitalist economy. So what are they doing? So right now, what they're doing, they're allowing you to buy Bitcoin, and for God knows what reason, Ethereum, Bcash, and Litecoin. They're going to hold it for you until you want to sell it. So there's nothing else you can do. However, the service will be available. So we can't even do this yet. We can only do it in a couple of weeks, and it's not going to have any fees until next year. So it'll be free. So I have PayPal accounts, and they have cash in them, because one of them I'm having problems connecting my bank account to it. So I guess it's good. I have money sitting in PayPal, and I can now convert it into Bitcoin right there within PayPal, and I can just hold it in PayPal. hold Bitcoin in PayPal instead of holding the cash in PayPal, but I can't use it for any commerce. But they are also saying that that's coming, but it's a little bit tricky here. Increasing the utility of cryptocurrency in digital commerce. Well, first of all, before I move to Bitcoin being a transactional currency, can we talk about, I kind of was very critical. I am not thinking very highly of PayPal if their engineers and their people think that letting people buy fake Bitcoin is a good idea, or Litecoin, or I guess Ethereum is the only one that can kind of get away with it. But why the hell are you selling people Litecoin and Bcash? How dumb is PayPal right now?
Well, so I think this is a way for them to differentiate with Cash App. And we know how successful Cash App has been. And Cash App, Venmo is like a major competitor to Cash App, and they want to offer something different. And I think that's their strategy, is to offer all sorts of shitcoins. We know what's going to happen November 15th with Bcash. So it'll be like, I look forward to them like launching it, and then like the day after having to deal with like the Bcash mess and like splitting and all that stuff. Which will be loads of fun for their engineers. So it's probably like a diktat from above saying, hey, like we need to have these other things so we have some differentiation against Cash App. But then they'll realize, oh, this is why Cash App didn't do it, because
but I kind of wonder where it's coming from, right? Like, is the engineer, are there I guess they're blockchain engineers, are they smart enough to go to like the top brass and say, this is insane, we can't offer Bcash, it's a scam? And they're like, nope, you better get it done. Or is it the other way?
That's usually how it works.
Or is it
I've worked as an engineer in many places. I'm just like, this is insane, this is stupid. They're like, you're gonna have to do it anyway, sorry. And it's like, those are like the worst companies to work for, by the way, but that happens. Especially from like, I mean, I still like am traumatized from like the late 90s, where like every company that we were selling to like cared about what language we wrote our code in. And it was just like, is it written in Java? And we're like, no, that we're not going to buy it. It's like, who cares what language it's written in? Why do you care about that? And they're like, well, you know, because it's enterprise grade or something like that. It's like, oh God, you got to be kidding me. So like this is, it's the essence of bureaucracy, people thinking that they know more than they do. We talked about it earlier with, these bureaucrats that really don't know what they're talking about. Honestly, a lot of people up high in these corporate structures are people exactly like that don't really understand what the hell's going on. Their marketing people are probably telling them, like when we do these surveys, there are all these like altcoiners that want to buy their altcoins on this thing. And if we have that, we'll have some differentiation against Cash App. And they're like, okay, well, that's going to trump whatever the engineers say. So let's go with that. And yeah, I mean, that's what they're going to do. But that's usually how those decisions get made. But who knows? Maybe you have some Ethereum shills inside PayPal, and they're like, oh, we got to have lots of currencies and encourage people to use all of these things. But yeah, I mean, we know how Ethereum's done against Bitcoin the last few years. So yeah.
Right. And this creates this new dynamic, right? Like, I'm not going to call this like insider trading, but it's almost like insider investing. If you are part of, let's say, PayPal, and you're holding giant bags of Bcash and Litecoin and Ethereum, it's to your advantage to push PayPal into supporting those things, because you will profit personally from them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And yeah, I mean, that's just the way of the world. Like, we're counting on government, administrators and elected officials having some Bitcoin so they could protect it for us in a way, and not pass harsh legislation. It's just kind of how it is. But we know that there's a lot more people that own Bitcoin than any of these other things.
All right, so we have a couple of things. Which direction? So people in the live chat are pointing out PayPal isn't actually selling you Bitcoin. Well, they are. You just can't withdraw the Bitcoin. So you can. They're going to hold the Bitcoin for you, but you're still getting the Bitcoin exposure, which leads to another interesting scenario because one of the I have a conference called Unconfiscatable, and one of the amazing features of Bitcoin is that if you have Bitcoin, they can't freeze your accounts. But if your money is in the bank or your money is in PayPal, they can freeze your accounts and not give you access to it. So here's a question that I maybe one day ask to the law people. So if you have converted your entire PayPal account, let's say you have $50,000 in PayPal, and you converted it into Bitcoin that is held by PayPal, and then there is some kind of action against you, and they froze your account where you can't access it for, let's say, years. Are you still getting like the appreciation? Like, do you still get the Bitcoin back if you ever have access to that money again? Like, what happens? Because you could like become a Bitcoin hodler, and in which case, it would be interesting because if the Bitcoin price crashes, then you can say, well, they froze my money and Bitcoin crashed, so now I can sue you because you didn't let me go back into fiat. So it could become like a one-sided trade if they ever lock up your account.
Yeah, I don't know. Like the bigger worry for me with their custodying it themselves is like they could totally run a fractional reserve and sell more Bitcoin than they have. And if you can't withdraw it, then there's no way to sort of expose that fractional reserving. I mean, like I guess at some point they'll get exposed to that and it'll come back to bite them. But yeah, that would be the main worry with them doing that. But that said, like I believe Cash App, when they first opened it up at the beginning, they didn't allow withdrawals either, and then they added that functionality later. Once they have that, fractional reserve banking will become much more difficult for PayPal.
Okay, so now we're back to, well, what's the point of, and this is what I said on my podcast, you can buy crypto from dozens of different companies. How does that help? But here we go with, beginning in early 2021, PayPal customers will be able to use their cryptocurrency holdings as funding source to pay at PayPal's 26 million merchants around the globe. Now, I'm not sure what they mean by funding source. Does that mean I can send my Bitcoin into PayPal? That's what a funding source sounds like to me, but I'm not sure they mean it that way, though they might be able to accept.
Well, in PayPal parlance, a funding source is a credit card or a bank account or something like that. So when you pay with PayPal, you know, I guess what they're going to do is you can pay with PayPal and they'll do the conversion for you. So they'll sell some of your Bitcoin to US dollars, and then they'll, you can go pay whoever takes PayPal, like if you're buying something.
Right. So, okay. So I see what you mean. Yeah, you're right. That they do list as funding source. So funding source is your means of payment to another merchant through the PayPal platform. But if I'm holding Bitcoin with PayPal, and I want to pay a merchant that is accepting PayPal payments, this doesn't actually say that I can send them PayPal. It talks about converting your crypto into fiat, and they send the fiat. So basically, I want to buy something online. I'm using PayPal. I have Bitcoin in PayPal. I'm paying with Bitcoin for, let's say, a book or whatever. But the person on the other end doesn't get the Bitcoin. The person on the other end gets the fiat, which doesn't make any sense to me. PayPal merchants will have no additional integration or fees. All transactions will be settled with fiat currency at their current PayPal rate.
It's another way to sell your Bitcoin. Basically, you can sell it for some good or service.
I'm sorry, Jimmy, here's my question. If I am a merchant accepting PayPal, which I am, and I want the Bitcoin, and the other person is not going to let you do it, why can't they just let the Bitcoin go from him to me? Like, now I get the cash in my account, and now I gotta use that cash to buy the Bitcoin. Like, it's just
I imagine from an engineering standpoint, the reason why they do it this way is because it makes the integration much easier, because you just you have this huge probably flow of money and like additional checks and fraud checks and things like that happen like as soon as you start paying via fiat, and you have all of these like judicial processes in case like somebody doesn't deliver the item, or the customer like stole a credit card or whatever, and they want all of that in place. So they don't want to allow you to just transfer Bitcoin like say Coinbase does, or Cash App does, or whatever. They want you to settle in fiat currency so that you have certainty, and inevitably they're going to make some money off of that quick conversion from Bitcoin to dollars. So if you're, they won't necessarily sell it at the best price on the market. They'll charge some fee on top of that probably, and then it'll go straight to the merchant. But this is to make it as easy as possible for their merchants, and they're hoping that this becomes like a way for people to spend more money using PayPal, because there are a lot of Bitcoin rich people. They're gambling that a lot of them will want to buy stuff, which may be true during a bull market. Generally, though, most Bitcoiners know how to hold, so I don't think this is going to be a major part of their
right,
revenue.
which could create this weird dynamic where they're going to watch a lot of people wanting to get rid of their shit coins like Bcash and Litecoin, and they might see more activity because nobody wants that freaking thing. So this could actually lead to a lot of downward pressure. So this article was written in 2014, where I made the argument, and I wrote half this article, Ian published it, where I made the argument that if PayPal offered people the ability to spend their Bitcoin anywhere PayPal is accepted, it would drive the price of Bitcoin down because of selling pressure, because they're always going to be selling the Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when you're buying something with Bitcoin, especially in this way, because the merchant can't take Bitcoin, what you're doing is you're selling your Bitcoin. That's exactly like it couldn't be clear, because PayPal is going to sell your Bitcoin for dollars,
right,
and the merchant's going to receive dollars, and that's it. Like it's a straight sell transaction. I don't think it's going to be that popular. I mean, like there have been so many places where you could get all kinds of stuff for Bitcoin. Very few people like to spend their Bitcoin because it's an asset increasing in price. It's a better store of value and so on. You're going to spend your dollars way much easier and faster first. Rather, even if it's all integrated with PayPal, I would rather use my credit card than Bitcoins, because I'm going to get points with my credit card. I'm going to have the ability to do chargebacks with a credit card and so on. Whereas you're not going to have, I don't know, maybe PayPal adds some of those protections. But even then, it's like I have way more upside with Bitcoin than I do with dollars. So I'd rather spend the dollars first. It's just basic economics. And I mean, I'm sure people like Roger Ver have been like lobbying PayPal. That's probably how Bcash got on their list, because they're, Bcash is all about trying to, get merchant adoption and so on. Oh, now we're taking at every merchant. Yeah, good luck with that. Let's see how your price does as you keep selling. Essentially, when you spend on PayPal, it's going to be just selling. So we'll see how that works.
All right, so so we're gonna stay with the PayPal news. Rumors broke yesterday that PayPal is in talks to buy BitGo, and I guess I can give a brief summary on BitGo. Jimmy can fill in some details. BitGo basically helps big companies secure their Bitcoin through multi-sig to make sure that the Tony Galippi and BitPay disaster of sending millions of dollars to a scammer don't happen, which they still happen. Jimmy, give the audience a little bit more of just what BitGo does, and then we'll talk about, is this good or bad that PayPal might be buying them?
Yeah, so BitGo is, you can think of them as a custody solution. So a lot of exchanges, for example, use BitGo as a way to have multi-sig secure their Bitcoins. So you don't have a single point of failure. So what happened with Quadriga, for example, it was locked to a single key with the CEO who mysteriously disappeared in India, and none of the Bitcoins were found. So Yeah, like you don't want situations like that. When you use BitGo, you get multi-sig sort of out of the box. I believe they hold one of the keys and like you hold the other two keys. So you still have access to it, but like you usually keep one of your keys like in super cold storage, like inside like a bank vault or something like that, and the other key you use with them. So if you do that with BitGo, then it's a lot more secure and so on. I believe that PayPal is buying BitGo because they want to custody their own Bitcoins instead of having to rely on a third party. Also, it's like a nice entry to this business, and they're probably anticipating a bull market and so on. A lot of the people in PayPal, like I mean, Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, I think, they're creators and founders of PayPal. They've both said, like, Peter Thiel at least did, that Bitcoin is what we wanted PayPal to be, but we couldn't get it there. So they do have that in their DNA and understand the importance, and that's probably why they're gonna go try to acquire BitGo so they can have some sort of like custody solution, and they're positioning themselves for a bull market to come.
Okay, so actually, there's a lot of comments I want to address, but let's just finish this train of thought. So what do we think? So BitGo has been a fairly trusted company in the crypto space. A lot of other companies use them. So if PayPal, puts their corporate culture on top of BitGo, and we do see the price of PayPal stock, which did go up as the news broke, pulling back a little bit now. PayPal stock has been doing really, really well, which it should, because now with COVID, especially, I didn't even think about PayPal benefiting from COVID so much, because anything online and stuff like that, just like Zoom stock, totally spaced on that one. Once PayPal, broke out, that's the daily chart, but once PayPal broke out of this double top in wow, they were moving up early. So in April of 2020, when most of the world was still freaking crashing, PayPal hit its new all-time high and just took off like a rocket, up pretty much 100% since not even since the lows, since the breakout. And so what do we think? Like, how would, for example, Gemini, would they want PayPal to be their third-party custodian? Are they going to look for a more crypto grassroots competitor to BitGo? Like, do you think BitGo would lose business or gain business if it has the corporate culture of PayPal?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, PayPal is much more focused on retail, and they've almost always been. I guess by acquiring BitGo, that's where they would try to stake out their ground, is being sort of like a custodian, maybe even for merchants or something like that, where they could potentially become they have relationships with a lot of merchants and tell them, hey, like, we can store, like, you can have not just like USD balances with us, but you can also have like Bitcoin balances with us, in which case it becomes sort of like a way for a lot of these businesses to get Bitcoin exposure without too much trouble. I mean, they would be like a much better BitPay, basically. Having all these like merchant services, but they're already integrated with so many that this would, like, basically make it sort of a seamless experience. So that's what that seems to be the direction that they're going in. They're not an institutional player. They never have been. It was, I mean, look at their name, PayPal, right? Like it's for your pals and your friends, and it's always sort of at the micro level. And I mean, that's certainly a strategy, and I could see them becoming more successful, especially if there's a lot of small businesses with cash balances that don't like keeping it in cash. This way they can have some exposure. I don't know, that would make sense to me.
I also see this potentially driving more business to BTC Pay server, where more people want to be a little more independent. And I wonder if there are plans on the BTC Pay server team to be an open source BitGo, where you can choose your own, third-party custodian for a multi-sig through an open source BTC Pay server. So you're not reliant on a BitGo or PayPal, and you can say, hey, you know what? As of next year, we're switching to another third-party custodian, and we still have the same platform. We're just not giving you the keys anymore. We're giving the keys to another person.
Yeah, and especially once you get something like Schnorr, I'm sure there are going to be services like that pop up where it's like, okay, well, it's one key like that we're presenting to you, but it behind the scenes it's like 7 of 13 or something like that, and we have like service level commitments and things like that to make sure that you get the signature when you need it. But yeah, I mean that. I can totally see something like that happening a lot more as we progress in the technologies that we're getting.
Okay, let me. Okay, so we have a couple of questions I want to address, guys. I will glance at the price very briefly, but if you come back in exactly 5 hours, I will have a guest on, David Poole. Who's more of a fundamental analyst, similar to Willy Woo, with a lot of on-chain analytics. We will do a Trading Bitcoin show at 4 p.m. Eastern time, I think, where we're going to talk more about price. So there's 2 things I kind of want to address, and I already forgot one of them. So it was, so here's the deal. Roger Ver has been on this bandwagon saying that the way you should pay for things is you pay for it in crypto. I mean, used to be Bitcoin. Now he's all about Bitcoin Cash. So you buy Bitcoin Cash, you spend Bitcoin Cash, and then you buy more Bitcoin Cash just to spend the Bitcoin Cash. And this is that cycle where people, which doesn't actually make sense. Why would I buy crypto to spend crypto? It doesn't make any logical sense. Think of it this way: if you had a merchant, if you had a store down the street that you're always using that store to buy something. I don't know, what do you buy daily? Your coffee shop, your local coffee shop. And let's say that local coffee shop accepted, I guess, silver for the coffee, or like a restaurant accepted silver for the coffee, and they said, hey. Well, 1 silver ounce is too much. So 1/10 of an ounce of silver or 1/4 of an ounce of silver is about $5. So we will sell coffee for 1/4 of an ounce of silver. And right down the street from the coffee shop, you have a silver gold shop. Like, does it make sense for you? You have dollars in your pocket. Would it make sense for you to walk into the gold and silver store, buy 1/4 ounce of silver, pay a fee to buy that silver, then walk into the coffee shop just to buy that $5 worth of silver to pay for that coffee, while as that coffee shop also accepts your dollars? So this is the concept. And then the next week you get a paycheck and you walk back into the silver store, you buy 1/4 ounce of silver every time you want to buy a cup of coffee with 1/4 ounce of silver. This is the idiotic logic of buying crypto to spend crypto. It makes absolutely no sense, and no one is going to do it. Just because you can do it with a click of a mouse and not physically walk into a store doesn't change the fact that it makes absolutely no logical sense to do so. Jimmy, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, we've beaten that horse to death a little bit,
Right.
Tone. And,
people don't get it. So here,
yeah, like the thing is, people like Roger just refuse to get it, and they paid the price. I'm sure he's lost a significant amount of his net worth promoting Bcash and holding Bcash, and same thing with Jihan and many other people. So I mean, like, I'm fine with people believing that you're just going to lose your money. And I mean, like, we've warned you enough. I think my conscience is clear.
Okay, so one final thing that we also have to address, because we clearly didn't beat this horse enough. And people said, how is Litecoin still considered a shitcoin? Didn't Charlie Lee sell of his Litecoin? That doesn't really matter. But anytime the Litecoin is Litecoin a shitcoin or not comes up, I always refer back to one of my favorite posts on Bitcoin Talk from Luke Dash-Jur. And now we are going all the way back to 2013. This is not a recent view. This is the 2013 view from Luke Dash-Jur. And I think I'm going to read it. Essentially, it comes down to there being a void of any reason people would adopt Litecoin as a currency. Bitcoin by nature can only provide the same value put into it. So in this raw state, it functions as nothing more than a pump and dump scam, as it simply redistributes money from the buyer to the seller. The reason Bitcoin itself escapes this category of being a Ponzi or a pump and dump is that it is a major technological innovation bringing something new, trustless currency that has value to the world. By being adopted as a currency, Bitcoin can benefit even those who buy into it last. Litecoin and other scam coins like it, on the other hand, do not bring anything new to the table. They are just mere clones that retain the pump and dump nature of Bitcoin, but without the innovation that makes Bitcoin viable as a currency. Litecoin specifically made 3 irrelevant changes. They change of mining proof of work from SHA-256 to script. Not going to get into the details. Faster target block time. This is often passed off as faster confirmation, but in reality, it isn't at all. To get the same security as 6 Bitcoin blocks, confirming a transaction, you need around 24 Litecoin blocks. There are a lot of factors. Anyway, Litecoin is not faster and is not more secure. And the final irrelevant change, larger currency supply, but we all know 1 Bitcoin is divisible to 8 decimal places. There are more micro Bitcoin than Litecoin. So no silver to gold is needed in an alternative blockchain. So the view that Litecoin was a shitcoin goes back a long way and it hasn't changed. So keep that in mind as well. All right, we do need to wrap up the show. I will give an honorable mention, and there's a link to this in the video description, the Bitcoin Investment Thesis by Fidelity. Unfortunately, I did not have time to read the 29-page document, so we can't discuss it in depth. Missing Leah here on this one because I know she read it because she pointed us to it. But check that out. There is a link in the video description. Maybe I'll have time to read it. We'll cover it next show. And it's time to talk about the mempool for a minute. We are, it looks pretty bad. About maybe 100 Satoshis per byte. Let's get Jimmy's take.
Yeah, that's this happens whenever you get a lot of price action, as we have this week. Obviously, it's gone up over $1,000. So this is what happens when you get price action, is that a lot of people want to do on-chain transactions. Usually, people like moving money in or moving money out or whatever. So right now you're going to have to pay like 100 Satoshis per byte, but it is Friday and we have the weekend coming, and usually it clears over the weekend like it did last week and the week before and so on. So I would say that, if you want to wait over the weekend, 5-6 Satoshis per byte will probably get you there. Right now it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad right now. Those are the averages. So you need 136 if you want to get in on the next block at a minimum. 2 blocks down is 98 and 3 blocks down is 63. Those are pretty high numbers. But then again, we've had a lot of price action.
Let me throw a button there. We haven't had a block in 25 minutes. So it's like not having a block in 25 minutes probably starts to double that fee up because it just starts to get a little congested. But yeah, wait till the weekend, guys. Go on, Jimmy.
Yeah. So 4 or 5 Satoshis per byte, I'm guessing would clear over the weekend. Usually over the weekend, the entire mempool clears. So even if you have a 1 Satoshi per byte transaction in there, it'll usually clear. But it looks pretty decent right now. Just wait for the weekend. But then again, if we look at the price, there's been a lot of things going on. I think we might be poised for high fees for a little bit if price continues breaking out the way it has.
Also, don't forget that, and this is a flaw with all blockchains, but no one talks about it enough, is that the Bitcoin fee, like any other fee of any other blockchain, is priced in its own currency. We just saw I mean, the price of Bitcoin has gone up 100%. We've doubled in price over the last several months. If I look at the price of Bitcoin on a weekly scale, we were sitting at, well, that's not exactly double, but if we go back a few months, we were as low as, let's say, like 9,000 a few months ago. Now we're at 13,000. So that's 50-60% rise in the price of Bitcoin. So what does that mean for your transaction fee? So in the last few months, when the price of Bitcoin went up by 50 cents, your transaction fee in dollars is up by 50 cents because your transactions are priced in Satoshis per byte. And if each Satoshi is now worth 3 times more than it did last year, your transaction fee is 3 times more than last year. And this is going to be something that Bitcoin will deal with for a while. Just think about it. If one Bitcoin is $100,000, 10x, then one Satoshi is 10x more expensive. So your transaction fee is always going to be 10x more expensive. And this is where Roger Ver will never tell you that one of the reasons why the Bcash fees are so low, besides the fact no one uses it, is because the value of one Bcash is like 50 times less than Bitcoin. So his fee is automatically 50 times smaller because the lowest unit of Bcash, the Ver, is a lot cheaper than the lowest unit of Bitcoin, the Satoshi. That's another reason why other shitcoins have such low fees in dollar terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's something that we'll continue to see. Although, you know, once we get cross input aggregation or something like that, you know, you can. I think fees can go down even further. Yeah, that's my book, Programming Bitcoin. It's available from O'Reilly. According to Antonopoulos, my sales of my book should go up as the bull market continues. The other book is the Little Bitcoin book.
This book should really go up.
I certainly hope so. Little Bitcoin book is a book for your no-coiner friends, and this is you know, very quick read. You know, like, so only like 100 pages. So yeah, it's an argument for Bitcoin. It like doesn't tell you like where to go buy it or something. It's just it's for your no-coiner friends to, you know, learn exactly why Bitcoin's important and so on. So it's available on Amazon in English, Spanish, and Portuguese.
All right, cool. I also want to do a quick shout out because I was chatting with our friend. Oh, I'm trying to get his YouTube channel. Our friend Michael Karras, the Bitcoin Rabbi, and I'm trying to get to his YouTube channel, which is a little hard to find. Hold on, I just became a subscriber. So, because I watched one of his videos. How do I get to my subscribers? Here it is, subscriptions. All right. And I really liked this video. These are my subscriptions. Why can't I find who the hell I'm? Oh, here they are. Sorry. Should have been more ready for this. Oh boy. Tell me I subscribe to this channel. Man, it's hard to Google for it. Damn it. All right. Oh, wait. He texted it to me. Hold on. There he is. All right. I got the video this way. Boom. Just a quick shout out to the Bitcoin Rabbi who sent me this presentation that he did. It's right there. It's called Bitcoin and Judaism, but it's mostly a case for Bitcoin as money. And it was really good. Like I watched the presentation, and he did a great summary on Bitcoin and the history of money, basically summarizing Saifedean's book and what is money and how money functions and how does Bitcoin fit. So I really enjoyed this presentation. So a shout out. I guess you can Google for it. Bitcoin and Judaism. So he did a great job on introduction to Bitcoin. Not a lot of views there, but a quick shout out. So that was cool. And of course, Jimmy and I are characters in his children's book, which I have behind me. All right, that's it. Let's take a quick peek at the price. So here's the weekly chart. The weekly chart remains very bullish. I would love to see a close in this $13,000 area. And we're going to take a closer look at the price later today in about 5 hours from now. So come on back to the channel for a look at the price. The daily chart, we were a lot higher earlier. About an hour ago when we started the show, we were above 13,000. We have pulled back a little bit. We have not had a down day in quite a while. That's 6 up days in a row. It's not a big deal if we have a little bit of a down day. This is starting to look like a flag pennant, something like this. So we could have a little bit of a consolidation here before a breakout next week. I remain generally bullish. The daily MRI top is coming in about 2 to 3 days. So keep an eye out for that. But the weekly version still has plenty of upside. Yes, we went up a lot. Yes, Bitcoin needs to take a little bit of a break. But right now, I would not be, I wouldn't be looking at a trade right now. So yesterday when I did the show very briefly, I put in this blue line and I said an hourly candle close above this line makes me bullish. Unfortunately, the hourly candle closed above the line, closed way too high above the line. I was hoping it would close a lot closer. But the break of this line basically made me bullish. But that topped out. It almost made a new high. I thought it did on some exchanges. We went back to 13.2. We've now pulled back. So right now, I am back to being bullish with an hourly close above 13,000. Like we are just repeating everything. Another hourly close above 13,000 make me bullish, while an hourly close below this area here of 18, let's say 12,850, makes me a little bearish going into the weekend. You're seeing this red star, just like you see in this red star, telling you that the bears are slightly dominating. I would not buy or sell this current range. I would either wait for 12,850 to break to the downside or 13,000 to break to the upside. The higher level time frames are bullish. The daily is coming to an end on its bullish trend. Still have a few days. It can pop or it could slow down right here, consolidate. The hourly isn't looking great, full consolidation. And the 4-hour is also in full consolidation mode, so not very helpful. Just a quick peek at gold because I'm curious. Yep, gold's breaking down. I am not bullish gold. Yesterday's candle kind of took my bullishness away, as I said on the channel. And the S&P is hanging in there. The debates didn't really change anything, so that's interesting. I said about a week ago that I expected the S&P to just consolidate and not have much volatility going into the election because everyone is just confused. Everyone thinks that their side is going to win in a landslide, so which is kind of strange, sort of. But we'll see how the election works out. Okay, that is it. Please check out tonevays.com. You can support with the affiliate page and learn trading for free right here with the Learn Trading section. That's it, Jimmy. I think we got it done in a little over an hour, which is good. Thank you for joining. Any closing thoughts?
I mean, it feels very much like 2016. I don't know if you get that like sort of like deja vu feeling, like, you know, we had gone from like a really low point earlier in the year all the way up to like, I think around this time, 2016, it was like $800. And it's like, okay, it's ready to break out. It's ready to break out. And of course, we know how crazy 2017 was. So I don't know, maybe all this suffering in 2020 will be worth it with an amazing 2021.
So I agree. It feels like 2016, but very late 2016. We're talking November, December 2016, not early 2016, because in early 2016, Bitcoin was like $350, $400. But in late 2016, Bitcoin was in that $800 range that Jimmy's discussing. So when we say that, because a year in Bitcoin is a long time. So when we say it feels like 2016, it's more like 2017. But when you say it feels like 2017, everyone is thinking it's late 2017, where it like doubled in a matter of weeks.
That's why I said this time, late October to 2016, it felt like this.
Yeah,
right? Like
I agree.
Late October right now. So yeah, I mean, Bitcoin runs on 4-year cycle. So I don't know.
Yeah. So we're on the same page. I'm thinking November, December 2016 is what it's looking like. Will we have a blow off top like the last quarter of 2017? I don't know, but I think over the next year or two, it will be more like late 2016 to mid 2017, maybe not rising as fast. in percentage terms, but certainly in nominal terms.
Sounds good.
All right, guys.
I can't wait. Fiat the
Thank you all.
Lendes. This song is done.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See you.